Hi, everybody. Rory Johnston sitting in the open line chair tonight here on News Channel 5 Plus. So glad you are with us. And no, tonight I am not the topic like last night when we learned a little bit about me and Carrie. We had a really fun time. We appreciate all your phone calls. A much more serious topic, though, tonight as we discuss national politics, President Trump, and all the headlines. A lot has been going on. Ben Hall, I should mention, enjoying a much-deserved break. He's on vacation this week, so we hope he's having a good time. Regular guest is back with us, and is Professor Thomas Schwartz from Vanderbilt University, political science professor and expert in all things foreign policy. Professor, good to see you.
Good to see you, Rory.
I said I would do my best to fill in Ben's ample shoes tonight as we discuss this topic. I was telling you just earlier, so much has happened since you last appeared here on Open Line. I believe it was before the Helsinki summit.
It was actually around the time of the North Korean summit.
So a lot has happened, and we want to hear from you, everybody. 737 plus is the phone number, and that is why we call it Open Line. We want to open up the phone lines to get your take, and let's be, I will say, as respectful as possible, but you can be opinionated and share your opinion. That's what we want to hear. Just reading today, I think it was in the New York Times, it was an op-ed about political tribalism. There was a survey done, and most of the survey was done after President Trump's visit with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, which was much maligned by a lot of people. Even fellow Republicans were very concerned about that news conference afterwards, about his private meeting with President Putin. They still don't know exactly what was agreed to, what was discussed. There have been calls for the translators to come in and testify, and so on and so forth. This poll was conducted, and the vast majority of Republicans have once again risen to defend their president. Are you surprised by this?
No. I do think that Donald Trump has succeeded in making the Republican Party over and really becoming his party. I don't think we should be terrifically surprised by that. Barack Obama also was extraordinarily successful in making the Democrats his party as well. Right. I mean, he enjoyed a very tight
but this
control.
Poll even indicated, Professor, that at the same point in President Obama's presidency, he didn't have the kind of support that Trump has from his base. You disagree with that?
I'd be skeptical about how strongly, because I do think if anything, Obama, there was some skepticism. Democrats evinced that, but certainly his congressional majorities, his Senate majorities, held up as strong or firmly, even more firmly, I think, than some of Trump's. He had Obama at least also had the support of the traditional Democratic leaders within the Senate in ways that Trump doesn't have. So he did have that, and I think he had a very, very powerful support among the base. In Trump's case, he has a very emotional and powerful support among the base and a more skeptical attitude among the leaders.
And a little later, we're going to get into how that has trickled down and impacted a very red state like Tennessee in the campaigns and campaign ads that we see right now. But when you talk about reshaping the party, also this one article that I read just talked about there is a portion of the traditional Republicans who do not like, have never endorsed President Trump, do not like what he stands for, his approach, and they think they're not showing up in these surveys because they don't identify themselves right now with the Republican Party. Is that kind of shifting the political landscape, and how does that impact?
Well, if they identify themselves now to survey respondents as independents, they'd show up in that category, in which there's always a fairly substantial number. And that number tends to, that also tends to reflect differences in the parties and differences in who's in power. Independents sometimes lean more toward one party or the other, depending on which party is in power at the time, as to whether they call themselves that. So I think this traditional, the sort of never Trump Republicans who have a problem with him as a character or as in his behavior, I'm not surprised that many of them would probably designate themselves now as politically independent.
Right. All right, let's go to Vanessa. Oops, sorry. Vanessa on line 1. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi.
Hi, what's on your mind?
I'm calling concerning the Stand Your Ground law. the incident that happened in Florida the other day?
Yep, yeah, the incident where a man was shot and killed, right?
Yes.
The one that was caught on tape outside the convenience store?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned because that's just a license to kill. That guy posed no harm to the guy that shot him. He was only protecting his wife and family.
Right.
Understand that being a law to give the other guy who was itching for trouble with everybody the freedom to just walk away.
Yeah, Florida has a stand your ground law as well as Tennessee, and in that video, in case you're not aware of this story, a man and woman and children pulled into a convenience store. The man went in. Another man was outside and pointed out that he didn't like that they were parked in a handicapped spot, a disabled spot.
Right.
Apparently didn't have a pass. Got into an argument. The husband came out, and the video shows him pushing this man to the ground. That's when the man pulls out a gun and shoots the husband in the chest.
Because he pushes him away from his family, gives the other guy the right to shoot and kill him.
Right. All right. Thank you for the call. And if anyone else wants to call in about this, the police in that case, I should point out, Professor, had said basically, from what they see, the man who was pushed to the ground felt like his life was threatened.
I don't think that's going to stand. I have a feeling that
if you look,
there'll be a review, and there will be sort of as you can tell from the caller, there's the sense that this is way out of proportion to the use of force.
I mean, and now it's caught on video, and with body cams and whatnot, a lot more of these videos are coming out. Vanessa, thanks. If you'd like to talk about anything nationally, world of politics, President Trump, the campaign here in Tennessee, give us a call at 737+. We would like to hear from you. What do you think of overall the fallout from this summit in Helsinki? The president quickly, you could tell after this news conference when he basically seemed to side with Russia over the U.S. intelligence community. He came right out the next day and said, I meant to say would, not wouldn't, or what, you know. Right. And he seems to have kind of weathered yet another storm. He's moved on anyway.
Yes. Yeah, no, one of the hallmarks of the Trump presidency is that nothing lasts very long, and you really quickly move on to another story. And the other story he's moved on to, of course, was, for at least a moment there, was Iran, and the idea that the Iranians had been threatening, and that he was going to make it very clear to them that they should not threaten the United States. And so you moved from one case of him being accused of weakness in the face of a foreign adversary to him being able to
all caps tweet saying, look, I'm tough.
And also, in a way, also bringing back the whole North Korean thing in a different context, in the sense of, I'm going to deal with Iran now the way I dealt with North Korea, threaten them and force them to make a deal.
We're also going to talk about the trade tariffs. News today out of Washington that some aid is coming to American farmers to kind of help them as this de facto trade war kind of goes on, especially between us and China. We can talk a little bit about that. We got who is that again, Taylor? Russ. Okay, we'll go back to the lines. A lot of you calling in. We appreciate it. Russ, what's on your mind, sir?
Are we still talking about the stand your ground law?
Yeah, we can talk about that. What's on?
Okay, I just this one frustrated me because I saw this happening in Nashville about 10 years ago when you have a DA or a judge who say does not agree with a particular gun law. You have a crime that falls right into that law. If they word a press release or hold a press conference using certain wording, they could actually stir up a lot of controversy by refusing to prosecute based on that law that they don't agree with. And it just looks like that's happening in Nashville or in Florida. It's very frustrating to watch them play politics with this.
What did your take of seeing that video?
Well, your initial take when they start showing the pictures of what's going on, it doesn't tell the whole story. It needs an investigation. Yeah. You know, the DA released his decision to not prosecute. There's no possible way they could have finished an investigation that short of period of time.
Good point.
And I haven't even seen a release of an investigation.
Yeah. Russ, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Let's go to Jake next. Hi, Jake. Welcome.
Hello?
Yeah, Jake, go ahead.
Hey, good evening. Professor, I just wanted to ask you a question about Governor Bredesen. I usually vote Republican, but I'm on a vote for Mr. Bredesen. I like him. I think he was a great mayor, great governor. I've learned now you just vote for the person over the party, because sometimes it'll bite you if you vote for a certain party. But I just wondered what your thoughts were on his election this year. Thank you.
All right, good question. We'll get into that. Phil Bredesen, obviously a pretty well-liked, popular public servant, served without much controversy. He's a moderate, former businessman, and his campaign has been very he's really been careful with his ads, because he knows this is a red state and there are a lot of red meat Trump supporters.
Yes. I think he's running absolutely brilliant politically, the types of ads he's running, which is basically saying to voters here who like Donald Trump on some things, and he says if Trump does something that I think is helpful to the state, I'll support him, and then saying that, of course, the tariffs, other sorts of things, are things he's going to disagree with. So I think Bredesen has strengthened his pitch as a moderate. Where it's going to be interesting is whether Marsha Blackburn is able to nationalize the race. And for example, if the Kavanaugh Supreme Court nomination becomes a major issue and Bredesen is seen as opposing it in a way that some red state Democrats are not doing.
I will say this. When President Trump announced the pick of Kavanaugh, in the newsroom, we received immediately emails from all of the public servants and their response. And it was strictly partisan, as you might expect. The Republicans were all saying, what a great pick, what a great man, and the Democrats saying, it was from John Cooper, Congressman Cooper, whoever else, the state Democratic Party, this is not a good pick. The only one, I will say, Phil Bredesen's campaign sent a release where he said, on paper, he is a well-qualified man. He said, but I'm going to reserve judgment until the confirmation hearings, where I can hear how he answers the questions. And I thought, wow. That's actually a real answer, saying, how can I don't know the man that well enough, and I'm not going to tell you whether I'm going to support or oppose his nomination until I see the hearings and hear how he answers questions that are important to me.
Oh, I think it'll be very interesting if he can sustain that sense of moderation and that sense, because that is an attribute of the Tennessee electorate. Tennessee electorate has frequently sent to Congress and elected as governor moderates of both parties, and in that sense, I think Bredesen has got his finger on the pulse of Tennessee on that. What would be difficult for him would be if the campaign, if there's a spillover. Trump campaigns here, there are other sorts of things that go on.
Marsha Blackburn, at least not in the Nashville market, and I'm not sure about the other, outside of where she's obviously most well known here in the Nashville area. Whether she has started to advertise in the other markets, I'm not sure. I even checked with a friend in Knoxville. I think she had an ad buy there to kind of get name recognition going. Phil Bredesen has that name recognition statewide already. But from what I understand is she has a war chest of money, and once this primary passes, it's going to be a real, she's going to
Well, there is talk that both the Senate and the gubernatorial races will set records for spending this year.
We shall see. It's going to be an interesting race. All right, guys, listen, Taylor, we're going to take our first break here, if you don't mind. We got a lot of calls coming in, and it's a wide open topic, so just throw it at us, and we'll do our best to give you some perspective. Professor Thomas Schwartz is our guest, and we'll be back with Open Line right after this.